Hello, everybody. How are you? I'm Michael. I am the founder and CEO of Taxi, and I am absolutely delighted that you joined me for this tonight. For the first 30 years of Taxi's existence, video chats, Zoom didn't exist all those years ago, but we started doing these about a year ago, and we found that our members who participate in these at the beginning of their membership are much more likely to be successful with Taxi than people who don't. The reason is because there are a lot of little nuances to the industry and things that you learn as you're a member and you're part of the Taxi community. And it's not just, wow, that's a great piece of music. Let's sign it or get it signed. Especially in the film and TV side of things, there are a lot of little particulars. I think it's a little easier side of the business, but it's different from the record side. And people don't learn this stuff in the beginning. They used to learn it from their fellow members by participating in the forum and reading the newsletter and watching Taxi TV on Monday. One day it occurred to me, why don't we just consolidate the information, give it to people up front so that they can run a good race right out of the gate rather than gaining momentum over the course of a year or sometimes even two. So very, very cool that you guys are taking part in this. A lot of people think Taxi is a gatekeeper. We're not a gatekeeper. We're not preventing anybody from getting to anybody. We're actually enabling you guys to get to them. But people in the industry, as much as musicians all over the world for all eternity, wish that people in the industry would pay attention to them and give them, their ear and their time. And, can you tell me what you liked about it? Can you tell me what you didn't like about it? They're busy. They don't. They're out trying to earn a living, and they're not in the job of babysitting musicians, as they would put it. So that's why I want to do this stuff for you guys, to help you succeed. So here we go. Let's give you some tools. Given the time, patience, and productivity, I believe that virtually anybody can be successful. Again, not so much the film and TV side is not like the record side where you're trying to write a hit song. You're trying to write music for film and TV that solves a problem. It underscores an emotion in a scene, or a director or a producer or an editor is looking for something that makes you feel sadder or happier or makes the action feel more intense in a scene. It's not about, wow, that's a hit song. So it's in it's important that you learn these rules of the game right up front. If you think you can make a couple of submissions and somebody's going to go, wow, that's the greatest song I've ever heard in all the years I've been in the industry, I'm going to push a magic button and this person is going to be plucked from obscurity. And a year from now, they're going to be flying around on a private jet with a briefcase full of money sitting on the seat next to them. Probably not going to happen. I think Taxi is more analogous to a gymnasium. I think we've all probably done that once, where you sign up on January 1st. I'm going to join a gym and drop 10 pounds this year and tone up. And you go the first week a couple of times, and then you wake up the next week and go, it's too cold. I don't want to put on my gym clothes and drive over there and freeze my butt off. Or it's too much hassle to work out for an hour and then take a shower and go to work. Or I don't feel like doing it at the end of a long workday. And so, yeah, Taxi's like a gym. The more you use it, the better your results are going to be. If you paid for a Taxi membership and you just let it lay there like a gym membership, it's not like some miracle is going to happen and you're going to submit that one thing and poof, out of the sky drops an industry executive and makes you millions of dollars. Customer service at Taxi, you guys should know this, that we're a strange company in this regard, in a good way. And that is, we actually have human beings that will talk to you and give a damn about our members. So just know that between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m., Monday through Friday on West Coast time, Pacific time, you can call our number and get a live person on the phone, whether it's a question about a listing, whether it's a submission and it's been more than 30 days from the deadline and you're wondering why you haven't heard anything, a change of address, can I do this type of music with that kind of instrument, or would that be too weird? All that kind of stuff. We are here for you. And I've got to say, we get a lot of compliments from our members that our staff will spend the time. It's not like calling an airline, press one for this, press two for that. Good luck speaking to anybody that really wants to help you. So let's jump right in with my very first tip, and that is open and at least browse the new listings that you see in your email box every day. Make that a 5-minute daily habit. It's kind of like the gym, if you're not looking at the opportunities, you can't submit to the opportunities. If you don't submit to the opportunities, you can't get a deal and you can't earn money if that's, what you're trying to do. So just a couple minutes a day. I know it's like you see them every day in your box, go, oh, there's more taxi opportunities. Somebody recently told me they actually have a thing called taxi guilt, that they feel tremendously guilty that they see the emails every day and they don't have the time to even open the email. To which I say, you clearly don't want to really be successful with your music. I mean, I realize success isn't the same for everybody. Some people might be happy getting a couple things a year in a TV show or a movie. Somebody else might want to quit their day job because they hate it and they'd rather be doing music full time. Somebody else's goal might be getting a song cut by a major label artist. So whatever your goal is, you can't achieve it if you're not looking at the opportunity. So just 5 minutes a day. You could probably do it in 2 minutes a day. Just open the email and go, all right, so they're looking for dramedy cues, or they're looking for heartfelt female singer-songwriter songs done on acoustic guitar, acoustic piano, whatever the things are, you got to look at them to know. Yeah, even, we send you 1,200 opportunities a year, give or take. If only 10% of those apply to you, that's still 120 opportunities that you will have in a year that you probably don't have right now. You wouldn't have joined Taxi if you already had them. So even if only 10% apply to you, just open the emails. Sometimes people will say to us, why can't I get the listings, that they're broken out by genre? I only do singer-songwriter. I don't care about, I don't know, dramedy cues. I don't care about hybrid orchestrals. I don't care about hip hop. None of that stuff appeals to me. But you know what? Let's say you do acoustic singer-songwriter. So you know how to use your DAW, Pro Tools, Logic, what have you. You know how to record an acoustic guitar. You know how to record a vocal. You probably know how to lay down a drum track using Easy Drummer, Logic Pro Drummer, or something. So you've got all those skills, but you don't think of yourself as an instrumental composer for TV. Well, instrumental composer doesn't mean that you're somebody with like a chart in front of you or a baton in your hand conducting an orchestra. A lot of times the music that makes it into TV shows is really simple, stupidly simple, if I can say that with affection, instrumental tracks. So somebody that thinks of him or herself strictly as a singer-songwriter, but you do mainly acoustic stuff, whether it be guitar, piano, couldn't you do that same thing without a vocal? Do a 90-second version that's structured like a cue, which is pretty much like one big A section, typically. And it opens up a whole new avenue for you. You've already got the guitar playing skills. You've already got the engineering and production skills. So why not open up a wider door so that you have more shots at success and don't limit yourself? So my point being that if you see more of those opportunities, you may go, I could probably do that. So that's why we send you all the listings, so that you can recognize other opportunities for yourself that you may have not even thought about. Some people will ask, I'm not seeing the daily emails. I joined Taxi a week ago and I'm not getting them. That's a red flag. Probably going into your spam folder, maybe into your promotions tab on Gmail. If you go more than 1 or 2 days without seeing Taxi emails in your box, know that there's an email problem somewhere. It could be that maybe you mistyped and fat fingered, a letter when you were entering your email. So we're sending emails to a box that doesn't exist. Whatever the case is, call our staff and say, I've been a member now for a week and I was getting the emails for a few days. Now I'm not, or I signed up yesterday and I didn't get any emails. If you're not getting emails from us, there's a problem. Let us help you fix it.
All right. Sounds like I got it. Thank you so much.
Oh, I got muted too, Ari. The crowd goes wild. Michael, shut up. Yes. Um, Read the listings carefully. You know, 80%, believe it or not, 80% of the music that doesn't get forwarded because people are submitting music that's just wrong for what was asked for. It's like, we don't know why. We, all of us, and this is not just a taxi problem, this is an industry wide situation. I talk to people in the industry pretty much every day of my life. It's amazing. You give somebody, it's like a recipe. Put in a half a cup of sugar and a quarter cup of butter and some baking soda and salt and whatever, and you've got cookies. We send you the recipe. They're looking for heartfelt singer-songwriter songs, mid to up tempo with female vocals. And do you know that 20 to 30% of the people that submit will submit stuff with male vocals, even though it says female vocals? And if you call them up and go, I'm a little confused. Why'd you send something in with male vocals when it asked for female vocals? Well, I just thought it was so good that when they heard it, they'd use it. No, not the case. Like I said, especially for film and TV, it could be a broken-hearted young lady just got back from her best friend's funeral, and she's in her bedroom clutching a sweater that her best friend gave her for her 16th birthday, and she's sobbing hysterically and missing her friend. They can't use a broken-hearted song about friendship with a male vocal on it as well as they could use one with a female vocal, because the camera and you are staring at a female and it's about a relationship between two young ladies. So there you go. Read the listings carefully, read them twice, and don't just focus on the part that you go, I got the perfect thing for that. Because in your moment, in that moment, in your mind, you may think it's the perfect thing. Go eat dinner, go take a shower, go walk the dog, do anything, come back and look at it again, and you need to see the big picture. Because your goal with Taxi is to try and hit most, if not all, of the requirements. And I know that that sounds a little antithetical to art and music in general. It's like requirements. I just want to submit stuff that I emote. It comes from my heart. Can't the world appreciate what's come from my heart and my brain? They probably can. But if you want to turn it into a career, you really have to give the industry what it's asking for. And that's true even of the record side of the industry. If, I don't know, Ariana Grande is looking for songs, don't send her stuff that sounds like it would be good for a country act. In your mind, you might be so in love with your song that you think, well, she could probably hear through that and imagine this being, an up-tempo female pop song that would be great for top 40, but they don't. It would be an extremely rare, if not an almost impossible circumstance that would happen. I'll never say never, but why wouldn't you want to place your bets on the thing that's most likely to win? And when somebody is reaching out to you saying, hey, do you have this? Hell yeah, give it to them. You'll see references in the listings. Your job is to listen to those references and not try and match them. Don't try and clone them. Don't try and create something that sounds like them, but get the overall vibe. Are they all about, 116 BPM, close to that? Do they all have a male vocal? Are they all acoustic guitar heavy with maybe a piano? What are the commonalities? You want to look at those common things and how they come together and go, okay, so I need to create something that's about this tempo. Some people will even match the key, which I don't think is really necessary, but it couldn't hurt. So you match the attitude, the vibe, the tempo, maybe the attitude of the vocal. Excuse me. Oftentimes I use "Miss You" by the Rolling Stones, just because the vocal is the vocal has such attitude in that song. So if I were trying to get in that ballpark, I'd want to find a singer or sing it myself where the vocal comes across with that kind of sassy cockiness that Mick Jagger has on that song. You're not copying his melody, you're not trying to sound like Mick Jagger, but you are trying to have that same swagger that he's got in that song. And the other two references probably have vocals with swagger as well. Um, and when you've got something, maybe you're 2/3 of the way done with it, and this is true for film and TV and the record side. Listen to the references again and then play your song or your instrumental right after you've listened to the references, and ask yourself this simple question: does my piece of music fit on a playlist that these things would be on? And if the answer is yes, yay, you're getting it right. Bring in a family member, a friend, and say, I don't need you to judge the quality and tell me you love it, because mom, I know you're going to love anything that I do. But just, does it sound like it would be on a playlist on Spotify with these other things? Or does it sound incongruous? It's like, why would you have West Coast hip hop on a playlist of, I don't know, top 40 pop R&B? Um, they just don't work together. Um, okay, this one is super important. And if you got a pencil and paper handy, write this one down. And I know you're going to go, oh my gosh, what is he telling me? But this is a life changer. Learn to create music for the listing rather than trying to create something that you recorded 4 years ago, pressed up 500 CDs at CD Baby, and now you've got 475 of them sitting in the garage. What the heck can I do with these things? I spent 20 grand making this album and it's just sitting there collecting dust in the garage. I know, I'm going to join Taxi. And every time I see a listing, even though it doesn't really ask for what I've got, when they hear how wonderful my piece of music is, they're going to forget what they need. And they're just going to call me up and go, we love this thing. We're going to sign it, or we're going to put it in our movie or our TV show. So just don't put square pegs in round holes. It hardly ever works. A lot of members quit during or after their first year because that's exact scenario that I just described is what they're doing, and they get frustrated. They're trying to take something, they're beating a dead horse. It's just dead. Move forward, create new stuff. And then you're thinking, well, a Taxi listing runs for like 3 weeks. I can't create a new piece of music in 3 weeks. You really can. You've just never tried before. This is an act of faith. I'm asking you to believe me, even though you've never met me and you don't know me. But I'm telling you, after 31 years of doing this, our Taxi members that are the most successful are the people that have learned to go, I could do that. And they can do it in a week. They get to the point where they see a request for an instrumental cue and they can crank one out in 2 or 3 hours. It's a learned skill. It's what do they call it? Muscle memory. The more you do it, the better you become at it, the faster you become at it. And pretty soon you start doing little tricks, like you build a template in your DAW. Every time you do a hip hop song, it's basically the same 808s. It's the same keyboard sound. Start out with that standard stuff and then adopt it. Maybe they're looking for, kind of down and dirty, street sounding hip hop that sounds a little ominous and like something bad's going to happen. So great. It's pretty much same instrument sounds, just maybe a different tempo, maybe a different definitely a different melody, maybe even a different key. And then maybe the next thing you see is I don't want to say happy hip hop, but an uplifting look at hip hop. Again, you can use the same instrument sounds. It doesn't matter that you've got the same 808s 2 weeks later, a month later, or a year later on another piece of music. Why reinvent the wheel and sit there scrolling through all those different options of kick drums or basses or guitars? just have a template. You can always go back and change the one or two things that you might need to make something more suitable for that particular pitch. But having a template is awesome. It will make you faster and it will help you stop submitting your old material for new requests. I've got this in all bold. I've touched on it already, but I'm going to do it anyway. The famous Michael Lasco shoe store analogy. When I was a teenager, I worked in a shoe department, and a little department store in a farm town, Illinois. The shoe lady was out with some surgery one summer, and they asked me if I could run the shoe department. And so I was there 8 hours a day, 5 days, 6 days a week, working in the shoe department. And let's say a lady came in and she asked for a size 7.5B POTA pump with a 3.5-inch heel and a dyeable fabric so she could get it to match her bridesmaid's dress that she's going to wear to a best friend's wedding a week from now. If I went in the stock room and came out with a Basswegian 9.5D in Cordovan, the lady might look at me and say, well, that's a beautiful penny loafer you got there. But I asked for 7.5B. This is a 9.5D. I asked for a lady shoe. This is a men's shoe. I asked for it in a color that I could match to my bridesmaid's dress, and Cordovan ain't what I was looking for. The customer would think you're nuts, right? But that's the way the music industry works. Like I said earlier, they're always looking for something in particular. It's extremely rare that they're going to discover the next Beatles or the next Bob Dylan. It's extremely rare that they're going to hear something and go, I don't care what it is we need or what it is we want or what it is we're going to solve this problem with. This is just so awesome. I'm going to sign this person because they popped out of their mommy's tummy a genius. They have a gift. So therefore, all the rules don't apply to them. The rules really do apply to you. And play by the rules becomes successful. Don't play by the rules, and a year from now, we'll be having a different discussion, which is, I tried Taxi and it didn't work out for me. No, you joined a gym and you never went. So you got to do 10 reps of the heavy weights every day, or you're not going to build muscles. I know that from personal experience. Next bit of advice is sign up for the Taxi forum. I know that forums are kind of old school technology. They were kind of a 90s to early, maybe even mid 2000s kind of thing. A message board, a forum. Social media really kicked its butt. But social media is very, what's the word I'm looking for? Here 1 minute, gone the next. I can't think of the word that I'm looking for, but that's what it's like posted and then it's gone. Hard time going back and finding it. A forum is like a living, breathing encyclopedia of information that other people have put up there. So happens that most musician forums are not that friendly. It's like, ooh, you call that music? Dude. You call that good guitar playing? Dude. That's kind of the general tone. That is not the tone of the Taxi forum. And we don't know the reason why, but for some reason, our members, even our most successful members that are earning six-figure incomes, still hang out on the forum and are extremely helpful and uplifting and supportive and mentor-like to new members. You can go on there, and ask a question to say, hey, I'm a new member and I'm thinking about submitting this piece of music for that listing. Should I do it? And other forums might tell you, no, don't do it because they're worried that your piece of music is better than theirs. That doesn't happen on the Taxi forum. We literally have six-figure earning members that will befriend and mentor and help people who are brand new, literally joined Taxi a week before our convention, showed up, met them at the bar, met them standing in the registration line. They become friends, they become collaborators. It's a thing. But the forum, which is at forums.taxi.com, I know it sounds old school, but do it. You'll meet the greatest bunch of other Taxi members. They will end up being your collaborators. You know what the fastest way to get a deal in the music industry is? That's ride in on the coattails of somebody else that's already got a relationship with the company. You play saxophone. They don't. The company happens to be looking for an instrumental track that sounds like early Bruce Springsteen, and they need saxophone on it. You don't play saxophone. You try saxophone on your synth, but it sounds too MIDI driven. So you go on the Taxi forum. Hey, any of my fellow members play saxophone? I can think of two members that are like world-class sax players right now. And both of those people have numerous deals with numerous publishers. Um, you end up working with them, they like the relationship, and boom, you get to ride in on their coattails to those companies that they're already working with. So rather than working for a year or 2 years or 3 years to build up those relationships, you might do it in the first 60 days of your membership just because you're hanging out in the Taxi forum. Go to the forward section of the forum. There's a thing in there called the forward section. We also have a forwards blog, which Ariana will post in the chat in a moment, I'm sure. This is something that our most successful members, almost to the person, tell us they do, which is they go listen. When they don't get a forward, they go listen to the stuff that was forwarded. And I know that that can be a bitter pill. It's like, who are these people? They got the thing that I wanted and I didn't get it. Get over it. Don't let your ego take control of your destiny. Listen to the stuff and try and be as objective as you can. Maybe it'll take you a day or two to calm down after you find out you weren't forwarded, and you go listen to it and go, gotta say, virtually everybody that got forwarded for that thing, their mixes were better than mine, or they followed the rules more closely than the people who didn't get forwarded. So just know that there's basically a handbook to measure your quality by just listening to the stuff that worked. Why wouldn't you do that? It's free, it's easy, it's short. You could spend 5 minutes on there and get a hell of an education. TAXITV. How many of you guys, raise your physical hands, not your electronic ones? How many of you have ever watched an episode of TAXITV? That's good. Some of you guys. All right. Every Monday for the last 13 years or so, I do a thing almost every Monday. Sometimes we skip an episode or something, but we do a 90-minute thing called TAXITV. It could be that I've got a music attorney on there fielding questions from Taxi members. It could be that I've got a successful member on there answering questions from other members. It could be we're listening to the top 10, which we just did on Monday's TAXITV this week. People swear by TAXITV. It didn't start out with us trying to educate anybody or create a YouTube phenomenon that turned me into an influencer. Our audiences are still pretty small, but they're very focused and they're very dedicated. And I can't tell you how many success stories our members email for the newsletter where they include, and I've learned so much from TAXITV. So once again, it's free. All you have to do is show up on Monday. We do give away the occasional microphone or a t-shirt or a really good book or something. So win prizes. You'll meet a lot of our most dedicated members in the chat room. They'll be talking about what they're drinking during the show or what they just made for dinner, or my dog is jumping on my lap, or the cat's scratching at the door. I mean, all kinds of stuff happens in that chat room. But friendships are made, professional friendships are made, collaborations happen, and you'll learn a lot of great stuff. And if you can't join us for the live show, you can watch the archives on YouTube. If you don't want to dedicate 90 minutes to watching a full episode, look carefully through all the different categories of videos we have on our YouTube channel, and you will find cut downs that we've made where we've taken a 5-minute segment on a particular topic and covered it, so you don't have to watch the whole episode looking for it. We also have annotations and chapters underneath the video, so you can go right to the part you're most interested in. Here's something that people never thought about 3 or 4 years ago, but they're thinking about it now. Again, raise your physical hands if you've got music on CD Baby Pro, or you've used CD Baby or TuneCore or something like that to distribute your music. So roughly 40% of you. All the people that don't have your video on, I can't tell if you're raising your hands, and so you might feel a little foolish. If your camera's not on, you're raising your hand. I can't see you. But from the people I could see, 40% said yes. All right. If you check the little box that says, would you like us to monetize your music? If somebody decides to license it for a TV show or movie and you go, oh, hell yeah, check that box. I've just signed up for CD Baby Pro. CD Baby's a wonderful company. They're friends of ours. We've done business with them for many, many years. TuneCore, wonderful company. They're not doing anything illegal, immoral, unethical, or untoward. But if you sign up for them to monetize your music, believe it or not, you have signed a publishing deal. You literally, by checking that box and agreeing to the terms and conditions, you've signed a publishing deal. So now when we've got a production music library looking for heartfelt female singer-songwriter songs done on acoustic guitar, and you go, I got the perfect thing. And you send it in, and the library CEO reaches out to you the next day or after we finish screening it, they reach out to you and say, Bob, I'd love to license that song, put it in our catalog and get it into some TV shows and movies. And you go, great. And then Bob starts doing his due diligence and he calls you up and he goes, or the library CEO calls you up and goes, yo, Bob, I can't sign you. Why not? Don't you like my song anymore? Oh, I love your song. It's just you're already signed to a publishing deal. You can't have two publishers, just like you can't have two spouses. Well, some states I think you can, or under some circumstances, but you know what I'm saying? You can't commit what I call music bigamy or publishing bigamy. You can't really have two publishers in the film and TV world at the same time, because let's say that the new publisher, Music Library, that you met through Taxi gets it into an episode of White Lotus season 3 and go, yeah, that's awesome. And then when the money gets divvied up, it's all of a sudden CD Baby or TuneCore or somebody is getting a piece of that money. Why? Because you signed a publishing deal with them and you forgot about that. You checked that box 3.5 years ago. So rule of thumb is don't submit any music. It's okay if it's distributed through them to get it on Spotify and Apple and wherever else. But if you check the box that says you want them to monetize it or do a publishing administration deal for you, it's of no use to anybody in the film and TV business. So that's a biggie. That happens all the time. As a matter of fact, a publisher who's become a very good friend of ours over many, many years sent us an email about 3 months ago, and he said 60% of the music that Taxi forwarded to him had already been signed to either CD Baby, TuneCore, or wherever. We have no way of knowing. And you would think that our members would be diligent enough to go, oh yeah, I shouldn't submit this stuff. It's signed already. But people check the box. They just get excited over somebody's going to monetize my music. So I'm going to check this box. I don't care if it's an extra $5 a month or $10 a year or whatever it is. I'm checking that damn box. Somebody's going to monetize my music. Yay me, I'm going to make money. Well, that's the only place you technically can make money with it. So fix that. You can get out of those deals, by the way, in most cases, but it takes a while. It takes a bunch of back and forth emails. It's a process. And truthfully, that stuff is probably music that you did a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, or 10 years ago. It's probably not going to be your most productive, best shot for Taxi listings. So maybe one way to avoid it is just let it be signed to CD Baby Pro or wherever, and just don't submit that music. Like I said, the music you start making once you become a member will become better every week. You're going to go, wow, I'm so much faster, so much better. I'm a better writer. I'm a better producer. I'm a better engineer. I'm faster. We hear that from our members all the time. Some members don't get better and don't get faster. And that's because they're not going to the gym and they're not lifting the weights. Ooh, I've got sunshine coming in on me. I used to have, before winter set in, I had a piece of paper up there on my blinds that blocked that out. I took it down a couple of months ago. So, wow. Oh, I'm easily entertained. Here's a biggie, really big one. If a company like a production music library or anybody sends you a deal offer and then they ask you to do certain things like, can you give me a 30-second version and a 60-second version? And can you give me a mix minus vocal? Can you send me stems, which are basically just the guitar tracks, or just the rhythm track, or just the drum track, or just the keyboards. You actually need to send them that stuff. It's not very hard to do, but for some reason, a lot of people think, they love my music. I'm not going to So I sent them a thing that they asked for 30. I sent them one that's 31 seconds. No big deal, but it actually is a really big deal. And here's why. A 30-second piece of music, and a TV commercials cut off. A computer cuts it off at 30 seconds. It goes to the next commercial. So if you send a piece of music that's 30 seconds long and it's got a 1.5 second ring out on the last note of the last chord and a reverb tail on it, that stuff's going to get cut off. It's not like they've got some guy sitting at the, NBC broadcast center. It's going, I love this song. I'm going to let this one run a minute or a second and a half into the next commercial because that ring out is so awesome. Ain't going to happen. Computers making that decision. It's going to cut off your music. Even worse is the company that you're trying to get to sign you and do that deal with you isn't going to do the deal because they'll see you as a pain in the butt to work with, somebody that just can't follow the simplest rule. I can't sell your music if you don't give it to me in sellable form and fashion. So therefore, if you can't follow the simple rules, I can't do business with you, even though I think your music is awesome. So just follow the rules, follow their instructions. If you have a question, reach out to them of a very short, like 1 or 2 sentence email. Most production music libraries will hold your hand a little bit if you really come across as kind of very amateurish and needy, and you think that their whole day should be dedicated to making your life easier. Don't do it. Reach out to your fellow members on the Taxi forum and ask them the question because they will know the answer to it. This way, you're not burning the bridge with the company that just signed you. You're not burning a relationship for the future. And you're still getting a great answer because you're getting it from somebody that's been there, done it, made the same mistake, or had the same question. Here's a great example. Here's an actual email that we got from one of our clients about this very thing. Our head of A&R, Tom, sent a thing out to, a bunch of libraries right after New Year's Day saying, hey, it's a new year, you're looking for any music. And this guy writes back to Tom, he says, Happy New Year to you too, Tom. I'll let you know about running more searches through Taxi. I took a lot of people on for the emotive piano tracks listing. In other words, he signed a lot of members from a listing that he ran. The problem with taking new people on is the ones who aren't regular library composers frequently deliver their music incorrectly. For example, the wrong levels, versions that are not correct, or technical errors. If it's just one person, it's not the end of the world. But I spent a huge amount of time holding the hands of most of the composers to get these things from this batch to the point where they were usable for me as a company offering them to our clients. The creative quality was unquestionable, but it's frustrating having to send things back so many times to the creators when things just aren't sent out clearly according to my delivery guidelines. I guess this is the difference between those who are doing this as a living full time and those who do it in their spare time. Not your fault or Taxi's fault, but it was kind of my fault that I took so many new people on. I took tracks from 17 people you forwarded me. That was a huge amount of micromanaging. So in the end, 17 Taxi members were sent to this person. They were all signable, and he was excited about it. And he offered 17 people a contract. That one thing you've waited for your whole life is to get somebody to say, your music works for what I need. We're starting a relationship, and this is the launch pad for your career. And you've blown it by sending something with levels that are too low, or it's a second and a half too long, or they asked for 24-bit and you sent 16-bit. Whatever those things are, those are all solvable problems. They're not rocket scientists. You don't have to be a brain surgeon to do them. But if you don't know how, just go on the Taxi forum at forums.taxi.com. Ask your fellow members, get it right. That person at that company will love you for that. And that will be the foundation for all of your interaction with them moving forward. And if you can get 5 of those people or 10 of those people over the next couple of years, you can build this up to where, eventually after 7, 8, 9 years, you're in $100,000 a year club. You can say adios to the day job that you may not love. And when you get ready to retire, you will have money rolling in, mailbox money, because of all that music you've got and all those catalogs, because you sent them 24-bit, not 16-bit. You sent them something that was 30 seconds, not 31 and a half. It's all of those little things that add up. Just ask my wife. I didn't read the last part. This was on the next page. I think I probably need to be more careful about taking too many new people on at the same time, especially those who are new to the business or less experienced, even if the final product is brilliant. So that's a great example of music could be the best in the world, but you got to play by their rules or the great music just doesn't count. I don't know why musicians, and I'm sure creative people such as authors, painters, photographers, it's probably something that cuts across the entire spectrum of creative people. It's just my product, my thing, my art is so good that that's going to be such a turn on for them that all those other things don't count. It all counts. The music has to be great and you have to follow the rules. All right, let's jump into these. Are all actual frequently asked questions that I've jotted down so I can run them by you guys. Can I submit songs not written by me, but written by a friend? No. If your name isn't on the copyright or wouldn't be on the copyright, you may not have registered the copyright yet. Man, that cappuccino looks really good. Somebody's got it looks like, oh no, it's a beer or a cappuccino in frame, whatever it is. I'm thirsty, I'm hungry, and I want it. Oh my God, that looks good. Anyway, no, you can't submit stuff for a friend. Here's a classic example of how that went south. We had somebody do a solid for a friend. He saw a listing and it was for a major motion picture. I think it might have even been for one of the Indiana Jones things, and it was a big time music supervisor. It was probably like a $20,000 to $50,000 sync fee up front. And so this person reached out to his best friend and said, I don't have the right thing for this, but you do. Let me submit it under my membership. Wouldn't you know it? It got forwarded and it was under consideration for that incredibly good slot. And the music supervisor, who's a really big, like Hollywood legendary music supervisor, whose name, at least in Hollywood, is kind of a household name, reached out, called the guy and said, I'd love to license your song, Mary Had a Little Lamb, for this major motion picture. And he goes, yeah, I don't have a song called Mary Had a Little Lamb. I actually submitted that for a friend of mine. And the music supervisor lady said to him, so let me get this straight. You don't have any legal right to represent that song. You don't own any part of it. You didn't create any part of it. You're just doing a favor for a friend. He goes, yeah, I thought it'd be helpful. Well, so you lied when you submitted it. You weren't forthright. So you're not playing by the rules. Therefore, I don't want to do business with you. Thank you very much. Click, opportunity gone. That's the way Hollywood really works. So there are going to be times where people in the industry are going to reach out to you via email, telephone, whatever, and they've got to know that they're talking to and doing business with the person who created and controls that piece of music. You may be a co-writer on it with 2 or 3 people, but you have the ability to submit it. Can I submit material that I didn't write, but I produced it? So virtually everybody watching me right now has a home studio. I'm sure that you've all done favors for somebody else whose music you really like. They came over and did stuff in your studio. That's great. Or maybe you're doing cash and carry production jobs with local artists where you live. And you think that you should submit something because you had a hand in it. You produced it. But again, even though you produce it, you don't have the legal right to submit it. So you could call that person and say, I just saw a listing in Taxi is so friggin' perfect for what you've got. let me send you the listing and a link to Taxi's homepage. Should think about joining. That would be the right way to do it. I'm not trying to generate a few extra memberships a year by doing that. It's just you can't submit stuff that you're not authorized to. It's like turning in a test that a friend of yours took for you, which frankly, when I was in school sounded pretty tempting, but not in the real world of business. Do you know that people are now using uh, AI, yeah, what's it called? GPT chat, whatever it's called. People are using it for term papers for college, and professors, like all of a sudden in the last 100 days, are just seeing tons of these papers coming in time and time again that all sound like they were done by the same robot because they were. But it's pretty awesome. I don't know if you've tried it yet, but I went on there a couple of weeks ago and said, write a business plan for taxi.com. And about 45 seconds later, I had a reasonably decent looking business plan. It wasn't usable. It would have required hours of tweaking, but it was pretty cool. I was impressed. How many submissions does Taxi get for each listing? Everybody wants to know this. There was some bonehead on the internet the other day on YouTube doing a video about Taxi sends its listings out to hundreds of thousands of people. And when they forward stuff to a company, they send 5,000 things to the company. Do you want to have that 1 in 5,000 chance? Guy didn't know what the heck he was talking about, couldn't be further from the truth. So if you ever hear that rumor or see that guy's video, tell him Michael Lasco says, hi. Yeah, it really upsets me because people create a false image of what Taxi's really all about. So we actually did our homework the other day, not that we didn't know this anyway, but we went and looked at the last set of 20 listings where we forwarded music. And lo and behold, and I read those things on an episode of TAXITV. So, for one listing, we got 118 submissions and forwarded 34. And I'm just making these numbers up, but they're all pretty much in the ballpark of reality. Another listing, we got 68 submissions and forwarded 9. Another one, we got 221 and forwarded 35. So those are more typical of the numbers. If the most we ever got for one thing, I believe, was a little bit over 800 submissions. It was for instrumental percussion only tracks for like TV commercials, where you see a car commercial and it's nothing but a beat, or a commercial that's using like drumline drums underneath it. No melody, no other instruments, just drums. Everybody thinks they can do that. And frankly, a lot of people can do it really well. So we got about 800 submissions. Taxi doesn't have a quota. We don't say we're going to forward the best 5 or the best 10. If it's on target for what the listing asked for and the quality is there, we forward it. Well, in this case, a lot of members hit the nail on the head, about 40%. So we had over 300 pieces of music to forward to that company. We had to stick with what we promised our members, but we also knew that we were going to freak out the person at the company. Hey, dude, we're sending you over 321 instrumental tracks to listen to. Nobody would want to listen to 321 instrumental tracks. They would listen to the first 10, 20, 50 and find what they need, not even bother listening to the rest. So we called the guy up and said, you know what? How about if we break it up into like 4 sends where we send you like 75 a day for 4 days or something like that? And he went, great idea. So in the end, everybody who should have been forwarded and heard was forwarded and heard, but that was probably the most exceptional and extreme example ever. If we get a listing that is for, I'm trying to think of a type of metal that's really odd, but like, I don't know, female death metal from the 80s. We're not going to get a lot of submissions for that. We're probably going to get 6 submissions, but you can bet your belly button that those 6 people that are submitting for that are probably really good, or they wouldn't have bothered to submit. It's not like a genre you're going to go out and take a crack at. You either kind of do it or you don't. So if we get 6 submissions in for something like that, we might have forwarded 4 of them because they were that good. And the other 2 didn't get submitted because they had male vocals on them when they asked for female. Go figure. So it just ranges, if you see a listing, sometimes it's a good business opportunity for you, frankly. You can be a big fish in a very small pond. If you see a listing that's asking for Aboriginal didgeridoo submissions, we're not going to get a lot of members that are going to go for that. But you know what? Run down to your local pawn shop and there's probably a used didgeridoo down there you could pick up for 25 bucks. Spend a few days getting proficient on it. And is it hard to learn? It probably is hard to learn didgeridoo. I don't know. I've never tried. And then, yeah, are we going to get a lot of submissions? No, we're going to get 15 or 20 for that. Are we going to forward a lot? Maybe, because those people took the time to get that instrument and learn it, and they did a good job on making what they were going to send in. So if we get 20 submissions, we might forward 14. Anyway, sometimes rather than going for the thing everybody else probably will go for, like the drumline thing, go for the didgeridoo thing. Be a big fish in a very small pond. You're never competing with other members. People want to know that all the time. That's why that guy that was trying to trash Taxi said, they forward, they get hundreds of thousands of submissions. First of all, we don't have the manpower. We do have about somewhere in the neighborhood of like 35 to 50 active screeners in any given month. We don't have the wherewithal or the manpower or enough hours in anybody's day to listen to hundreds of thousands of submissions. And we would never forward 5,000 things to a company. They would never run another listing with us. So you're never competing with other members. It's not like the screener is sitting there going, oh, submission number 78 is much better than what I heard submission number 2. Do you honestly think they remember what they heard, 3 hours ago on submission number 2, and they're going to backtrack and unforward submission number 2 because number 78 is 10% better? Hell no. It only lives or dies by the criteria of, is it over the quality bar and is it on target? Doesn't matter if sometimes we forward nothing to a company. If we just don't find anything good, it's not like they're going to get ticked off at us. If we say, couldn't find anything, they'll go, okay, we'll run the listing again, see if you find something next time around. So you're never competing. It just doesn't matter if we get 5 submissions or 500 submissions, your music, if it's on target for what they asked for and is good enough, will get on the desk of the person who requested it. That's the cool thing about Taxi. We're not just knocking on doors, pitching music, go, oh man, you need to hear this. It's really friggin' awesome. They're actually asking, can you find me this? And we're sending them back, here's exactly what you asked for. The quality of everything you hear is going to be really good, and it's going to be super on target for what you need. Moving right along. Aren't the screeners looking for the best song or instrumental? Well, yeah, they are, but they're looking for the best song that's on target. So it's not a matter about these screeners are trained to not inject personal taste into it. Believe me, it literally tortures them when they hear something that they love, but it's not on target and they can't forward it, because it's not about what they love. It's about what the person on the other end asked us for. So that's their mission is, you know what? Somebody came up with the best analogy. This will make the whole picture crystal clear for you. It's like a casting agent. A casting agent in film and TV. Let's say the director needs a 14-year-old girl with flame red hair, lots of freckles, striking blue eyes, and a Punky Brewster personality. Really spunky and a little irreverent and fun to be around. Well, would you send somebody who's 5'8" and brunette and 30 years old? No, doesn't fit the brief. So Taxi's job is kind of like being a casting director. We find the 14-year-olds with the striking eyes and the freckly face and put those in front of the director that is looking for that type of thing in that moment. Timing is everything. We all know that. Taxi helps you with your timing. Why don't screeners forward music that's pretty close and just let the person on the other end decide? We could do that, but pretty soon they would quit running listings with Taxi. Believe me, we've asked this question hundreds of times over 31 years. How, can we lower the bar 5%? Just had this meeting an hour before I was on with you guys. We were meeting with a publisher in Australia. and we're getting ready to run our first listing with them. And I said, it usually takes a little bit of experimentation at the beginning of the relationship. When we run that first listing and send you stuff, give us some feedback. Let us know if it was all exceptionally good or did we not hold the bar high enough. And if you let us know that it was all exceptionally good, we might then ask you, can we lower it a couple of percent? Because there's other stuff in there that we don't know where your tolerance level is. There's some libraries that are really, really, really picky, and some that are just a little less picky, or maybe their idea of what is brilliantly good doesn't line up with the next person's idea of brilliantly good. So we figure out where their tolerance level is and then adjust our relationship and the music we forward to them accordingly. But I want it to be known that 99% of every company we've worked with for 31 years said, only send me the very best. And then we'll go listen to their catalog online and go, the stuff we're sending you is so much better than what you've signed in the past. Maybe they don't know what the very best is. So we find a way to make the relationship work. And we always do that for the benefit of our members. Why do I get two different critiques of the same song from two different screeners? That happens all the time, quite frankly, and you're going to be a little bewildered, maybe even a little pissed off about it. But the reason it happens is screener A was screening for a particular listing, particular set of circumstances and requests. The second screener may be working on it the day after, or a week later, or a month later, or a year later, or several years later. Even though they're both asking for mid 70s classic rock with male vocals and crunchy guitars, maybe one of them had references that were more like, I think, Billy Joel, not crunchy guitars. They're looking for stuff that's more like Billy Joel kind of stuff, and somebody else is looking for stuff that's maybe more like Mike McDonald and the Doobie Brothers. They're both in the same genre, let's say. In this case, it would be like, yacht rock or soft rock from the 70s and 80s. But there is a difference. And so even though you got forwarded for one, you might not get forwarded for the other, even though they're both in the same genre. So sometimes members get confused by that and they go, but I got forwarded for another yacht rock thing like last month. Yeah, but this isn't right for this yacht rock thing. So don't get cranky with us if that happens. And by the way, you should know that we've got a head screener. If you think the screener missed the boat on something and you're absolutely certain of it, you can reach out to the head screener at Taxi and say, can you please double check this? It's not something that I would recommend that you do on a weekly basis or something that you do every time you don't get forwarded. That screener wouldn't know, a hit song if it jumped up and bit him on the butt. You're better off going to the Taxi forum and posting it online. We love when people test our abilities in a very public way. It keeps us on our toes, lets us know if we're missing the boat. So people go on to what's called the peer-to-peer section of the Taxi forum, and they post up the listing request, the song or instrumental that they submitted, and the feedback from the screener. And like I said earlier, then you open it up and say, hey, fellow members, did the Taxi screener get it right? People go on there, with flame shooting out of their ears and foam coming out of their mouth. And lo and behold, the public votes with the screener far more often than not. So we get to go, yay, we got it right. But it's good for you guys. It's comforting to know that the screeners are getting it right. You have to have confidence in them. Kind of like being an astronaut. The guy who's bolting the space capsule down to the booster rocket, they've got to get their job right, or you're not going to want to fly into space in that capsule. Well, the same thing is true. You're not going to want to continue to use Taxi if we don't prove that we're getting it right for you. Why can't I fix something? We found out very early on, 31 years ago, that when you give somebody permission to fix something, it's like you were really close, but the vocal's a little pitchy, or the song really needs a bridge. That person is not going to remake the deadline. The minute they know they've got a shot and they can fix something, oh, I'm waiting for my new keyboard to come, or I'm waiting for a new plugin. I need to learn this new plugin, or for whatever reason, my kid knocked over my guitar and now the intonation is terrible. So it's going to take me longer than the hour that I had to fix this thing and still make the deadline. Can you extend the deadline another day for me? Well, what about the other 114 people that submitted? What about the 21 people being forwarded? Should we reach out to the company that asked for this music and say, do you mind if we delay when you get the music because somebody's kid knocked over their guitar, ruined the intonation, and they weren't able to repair something that we pointed out to them? So unfortunately, and I know it's frustrating, but we can't do that. But the good news is that whatever suggestions you're getting from the screeners, you can take that suggestion and use it moving forward, because there are bound to be other listings that will require ask for the same kind of music. So it's not like you got one shot in your entire life. You'll get many shots for the same type of thing, typically, unless it is like, a Halloween version of female death metal in the key of G. Not going to get another one of those. How long will it take until I hear back from Taxi on a submission? We know it is torture for you guys. We know it's torture. You submitted, you're not going to hear back until 3 or 4 weeks after the deadline has passed. Not 3 or 4 weeks from the day you submitted, but 3 or 4 weeks after the deadline. We don't start screening the stuff as it comes in onesie twosie, because the screeners need to sit down with a body of work in front of them and not screen 2 today and then 4 tomorrow and then 19 on Wednesday. They want to sit down with a full bucket and just go to work. How long will it be until I hear back from the company if my music was forwarded to them? Wow. I wish I could give you a really solid answer on this, but all I can tell you is it varies. And frankly, look, I know when you get it forward, you're thinking, this is the thing. Somebody's going to hear it. They're going to love me. They're going to reach out to me. They're going to sign me. Yay. It's heartbreaking for all of us at Taxi, the screeners, the staff, myself. Most of the time, you're not going to get signed, to be quite honest. It's not like they're sitting there on pins and needles and they're going to sign every single thing that comes into them. Just because you got a forward from Taxi means that you're on their desk. It doesn't mean that they are going to love it more than something else, or love it at all, or maybe they will. But the time frame, if there is such a thing, is typically a few days to a couple of weeks, maybe a few weeks. The world record at Taxi, get ready for this. If you've got a seatbelt on your chair, now is the time to buckle it. One of our members actually heard back from a company 7.5 years after it was forwarded to them. 7.5 years. Here's why that happened. Because a lot of music supervisors or publishers or just people in the industry, they have folders on their desktops of their computers of stuff they've heard that they like. So they're looking for a particular thing. Let's say it's a music supervisor looking for something for a movie, and they hear your thing that we sent them and they go, this is really, really good. Someday I'll be able to use it, but it's not as good as this other one for this scene. It doesn't quite make you cry as much, but sometimes you need stuff that's sad but doesn't make you burst into tears. So for a moderately sad song, I'm shoving this in my moderately sad folder, and it sits there on their desktop. 3 years later, they're working on another movie and they need a moderately sad song for that movie. And they open up the moderately sad song folder on their desktop and they listen to song 1, song 2, song 3, and yours is number 7. And they go, that's the one. Works beautifully against picture, really conveys the emotion. Love that person's voice, love everything about this. I'm going to reach out to Taxi. And we say, oh, that person's no longer a member. They got frustrated and went home with their tail between their legs. But we do have their contact information. We'll reach out to them. And we reach out to them and say, hey, we've got a music supervisor that wants to put your thing in a big movie. Is it still available? Oh, hell no. When it didn't get signed through Taxi, I pitched it on my own 2 years later and I got it picked up elsewhere. But the right thing for that person to say is, but I can make another one that's really close and I can do it overnight. And that's how you get stuff in a movie, even though it's years later from when your thing got forwarded. And that's also the reason why, you get forwarded, and there are many times we'll never know about it. You don't know about it. The people in the industry are not going to take the time to say, Jeff, I really love this. It doesn't work as well as something else for that scene, but I'm going to take it and shove it in my moderately sad song folder. And someday maybe I'll use it. They just, if, could you imagine how many times a day they'd have to send that email or make that phone call? So I know it's torturous for you guys. You don't know. You feel like every time you feel like your song has gone into the abyss, don't take out a picture of me and start poking pins in my eyes. It ain't my fault. It's just the way the industry operates. We do our very, very best to get you guys signed and used and placed and earning income as quickly as we can. But they're just these things that are endemic to this industry. And you know what? Just keep making more music and making more pitches, because to some extent, it's a numbers game. It's quantity and quality and hitting the target. It's all of those things. It's not any one, it's all of those things. Damn, that beer looks good. Is that what's the Trader Joe's beer, Blue Moon, with the lemon on the cup? Ah, they're not listening to me. Hello, beer drinkers. Wave at me if you can hear me. They're not listening to me. Shut them off, Ariana. I'm kidding. Anyway, all right. I believe. Oh, do you guys all know what a PRO is? Raise your hands if you know what a PRO is. Performing rights organization like ASCAP or BMI or CSAC. If you're pitching for film and TV, especially, you should be signed up with a PRO. Personally, I don't even want to say I recommend this. My observation is the vast majority of our members don't register something with a PRO, especially if it's an instrumental track and it's an instrumental track that they're pitching to production music libraries or publishers. The reason they don't register it yet is there's a good chance that the publishing company that becomes your 50-50 partner, and by the way, that's a pretty standard deal. They hear this piece of music, we're going to not pay you anything up front in most cases. We're going to take 100% of the writer's or the publisher's share. You're going to keep 100% of the writer's share. If we license it for a TV show for $3,000, you get half of that, we get the other half. And then as the TV show airs and you make money from the performances of it on ABC, NBC, CBS, wherever, you make half the money, they make half the money. So a lot of times they put an identifying prefix on the front of the title. Let's say you wrote a song called I Love Debbie. And the library you're signing with is Michael's Music. So it might get retitled to be MM for Michael's Music. I Love Debbie, so that when they can track it better on spreadsheets because it's got their little identifying prefix on it. Or they might say, you know what? Nobody's going to license a song called I Love Debbie unless they've got a scene with a character named Debbie in it. So let's retitle it because a publisher actually has the right to do that. And why would you care? They're trying to do something to make you more money. Sure, go ahead and retitle it. Make it out to be You've Made My Life Grand. Something really generic, but it makes it more usable. Which PRO is the best? ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC in the United States? Can't tell you. I don't know. I know people at all of them. There are some years where people say, oh, ASCAP is definitely better than BMI. There are years where people say BMI is better than ASCAP. Who knows? What is broadcast quality? Broadcast quality means it's broadcastable. That it doesn't sound like a demo unless it's supposed to sound like a demo. If you take a raspy kind of lo-fi singer-songwriter like Tom Waits, I always make a joke that his guitars sound like he still has the same strings on that came from the factory 50 years ago. Never bothered to change the strings. His vocals sound like he gargled with gravel and did a couple of shots of whiskey before he started to sing. Technically, compared to Ariana Grande's productions and vocals, his thing sounds like crap, but it is broadcast quality for somebody that needs a lo-fi down and out raspy singer-songwriter. And then Ariana Grande for a top 40 radio pop kind of pitch is going to be where the standard is that for that. So broadcast quality doesn't necessarily mean the engineering. It means, or the production, it means the whole thing. Does this sound like something they could use in a track on TV? If you had a beautifully written, beautifully composed, beautifully produced orchestral trailer piece, everything about it was great, but your string sample sounded like it was from like 1998. Just sounded really cheesy and MIDI driven and just synthy. That ruins the broadcast quality right there. Everything else could be spectacularly well done. The playing, the production, all the samples you're using. All it takes is one bad sample to get somebody's ear, and they don't even say the words out loud. They just automatically think, can't use it. Just doesn't sound good. So there you go. All right. I am not going to do a bunch of these other ones because I want you guys to have time to ask me questions. So Ari, if you would be so kind as to unmute these folks or give them the ability to raise their hands, give them an instruction.
Yeah, no problem. So you guys can start in the bottom panel of your Zoom screen. There's a little happy face with plus sign. It says reactions. If you click on that and then click on raise hand, you can use that option to start raising your hand for questions. And if you don't want to do that and speak over, your video, you can always just type it into the chat box and I can read it for you if you want. But we'll go in order and I'll call on you and you can unmute when it's your turn. So Courtney, I see you're first. Feel free to unmute and go ahead.
Sorry, I'm out and about, so I'm sorry if it's loud, but I did put it in the chat as well. I've been looking at a lot of the submissions on Taxi, and it looks like a lot of them are for music libraries. So I was looking to see kind of the discrepancy between, like, is it a music library? Is it a sing fill? What type of opportunities are there to apply to on Taxi?
A wide range. Honestly, when I started the company, it was to help people get record deals and get songs cut and sign publishing deals. Over time, as the ability with home studios, people got the ability to make, studio quality recordings in home studios. That opened up the ability for them to get their music placed in film and television rather than going to a studio like the one sitting behind me. So film and TV kind of took off on its own, even though it wasn't a big part of the original business plan. And over the years, more and more people have recognized that it's an easier way to make money faster. And by the way, if you're trying to build an artist career, getting your song in a major TV show or a film is, literally can launch a career these days. So I would say that probably 60 to 80% of what we do is for the music library world. We would rather have you get your music in multiple music libraries so that you've got multiple people out there that can be getting your music in various places rather than just one music library or one publisher. And another little side tip on that, don't fall into the trap of my publisher. The first company that reaches out to you and says, I'd like to sign this piece of music, it's hard not to fall in love with them and want to send them everything you've ever created and everything you will create in the future. But then you've got all your stuff, all your eggs in one basket. And their client, let's say you do acoustic singer-songwriter, that's your forte. And you do acoustic instrumental tracks because that's easy to do if you can do acoustic singer-songwriter. Some libraries don't have clients that use that kind of music. So just make sure that you are not overloading the first library to fall in love with you, that you don't fall back in love with them and send them everything you create, because they may be kind-hearted and think, I'm going to go ahead and sign that just because I really like that person and we've got a great relationship. They're actually hurting you by putting you in a catalog that doesn't have a client base that's looking for that kind of music. So I hope that answered your question and not all your eggs in one basket.
All right. Thank you for that, Courtney. William, you're next. You can go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Okay. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I sent 3 songs in, and of course they were returned, and they were returned because of they said that a few things that were weak, like the chorus and a few things like that. So I want to know, I'm not interested in reworking them because I think they're fine. I disagree with the guy that dealt with that, because I don't want to clone my songs like everybody else's. My songs are all written in a different way. And so I'm not interested in cloning them according to, I know that that's, some people are wanting to jump on that, but not for me. But I want to know, what do I do with these songs now? Are they all forever cursed? Or what's the deal on that?
No, I mean, at any point in time, we've got somewhere between, I don't know, 25 and 30 and 50 screeners working. It's not like they all compare notes the other at the end of the day and say, oh, William Hendrix's song, I didn't forward it, so you shouldn't forward it. There's none of that going on. The screeners are all working remotely now. They don't talk to each other, even when they all worked here in cubicles. They never said, oops, something just popped up. There we go. They never talk to each other about what they forward and what they don't forward, other than rare outbursts in the A&R room. When somebody found something really fantastic, they'd rip off their headphones, pull out the headphone jack, and play the thing on the computer so everybody in the room could hear it when they thought they found something absolutely amazing. But it's not necessarily dead in the water, but you were probably doing what I recommended not doing at the beginning of the show, which is taking stuff that you've already recorded. Are you recording new material, or do you just have a body of work and you're going to be pitching that all the time? Oh, you're muted. I can't hear you.
William, you just have to unmute again.
The little microphone thing, you got to click that so there's no red line.
Yeah, I have a body of songs, about over 400 songs that I started writing in the mid-60s, and I've been writing up until now. And
Okay.
they deal with all subjects: love, broken heart, different social matters and all that kind of stuff. It's sort of like along the Bob Dylan type of stuff, or Don McLean type of stuff.
All right. So here's my suggestion. The stuff probably sounds dated back to certain eras, just like fashion styles change, and something. There are cases where something could be retro. It looks like a shirt from the 50s, but not totally. It's just got hints of that built into it. Same thing is true in the music industry. So people don't want stuff that just sounds. Most TV shows, most movies, most scenes take place today. There are obviously exceptions to that. So they want music that sounds like it's from today. And the fact that you're doing stuff that's very probably specific, especially the social stuff, maybe Vietnam era, like Let's Get Out of Vietnam. Now, there's a happy ending to this little story I'm telling you, which I'm not being as focused as I'd like to be about it. And that is, we work with the #1 publisher in the world for vintage music that was recorded in previous decades and sounds dated back to certain decades. We have had a huge amount of success taking that stuff, getting it to that particular publisher who runs listings with us pretty regularly. Sometimes they'll go dark for a month or two, and then they'll be back with 3 listings in a month. So just know that your probable target is going to be one of, we've got 3 companies that are running vintage listings with us. That's a great case of where you're not going to be asked to redo your stuff. They want stuff that actually sounds like an old recording and sounds like music from a previous decade. I'm hoping that you've got stuff that you actually recorded in the 70s. Even if you recorded on a TAC 4-track, they've been known to sign that stuff and get it placed. We had one gentleman who in his 90s joined Taxi, submitted music that he wrote and recorded during World War II in the mid-40s. It sat on a shelf for 70 years. And he joined Taxi. We got him hooked up with that publisher. And this guy was making like an extra 20 grand a year and getting his music placed in some really big movies. And I called him up one day and just said, we are so proud. His name was Peter. I called him up and said, Peter, I just want you to know the whole staff here is so proud of you and so happy for you. And the fact that you're making this nice little extra income in your golden years on top of your Social Security. And he started cursing at me like a sailor. And look at here, young man. It's not about how much money I make. It's about having my music be heard and appreciated. This stuff has been sitting in a box for 70 years. And finally, because of what you people did, the world is hearing it. And do you know, and when he died at 96 or 97 years old, his son, actually, his adult son, who's like my age, I'm in my 60s, called me up and said, I want you to know that my dad's happiest years of his life were because of getting his music out there, because of what you guys did. And he really loved everything you guys did for him. So that's my advice to you. A song that you wrote in 1980 about the Iran-Contra affair or something, I'm just pulling this out of the air. Where's that going to work? You know, no artist is going to cut that. Ariana Grande is not going to record it. A record label's not going to put it out. It's not going to fit in a lot of film and TV scenes, but if you can get hooked up, and what'll happen is you'll get one thing forwarded to one of these publishers that specializes in vintage music. And the first thing they're going to ask you is, do you own and control it? Yes, I do. I own the copyright and the master. Great. Do you have any other stuff? Yes, I've got 400 of them, 278 of which I've already got recordings of. They're going to ask you for every one of those 278 recordings. They're going to spend a week going through them with a fine-tooth comb, not looking for the ones that they think are going to be hits, but looking for the ones they think will be syncable in film and TV, and they're going to offer you a deal. And in that case, that one publishing company actually gives you $500 per song up front. They buy out the copyright, but you still keep the writer's share. So you get $500 up front. If it ends up in a big movie, and that movie goes to NBC and it plays every year at Christmas time on NBC, you're going to get mailbox money for the rest of your life. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that does help. Although my most of my music's really not dated to a particular time. It doesn't have that sound of the 50s or 60s or 70s, but you know, it's a different sound because I use in some songs they're more like jazz or blues. Some songs are more like you know, just modern songs. It's just kind of a mix, and I never followed any rules, so the songs are written with different chord progressions than normal.
Right. Another thing you could do is send stuff in, pick your 10 best and send them in for custom critiques with Taxi. The screeners oftentimes spend like an hour per song listening and really writing these super elaborate critiques. So you could send 10 in and say, you know, what genre might this be best for? I like my other idea better, but that's also a viable option.
I'll try them both. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next case, please.
Awesome. Thank you, William. Trumpet Dad, you are up next.
And my name is Joseph. Thanks, Michael, for this. I got a quick question. So you mentioned about the publishing deals. Now I've signed a publishing deal with a company in New York for the last 12 years. I've been syncing music and I get my royalties through BMI. Not a lot, but they place my music quite often. And I've also monetized with CD Baby. So my question is it obviously the music that I've done for the publishing company in New York, I can't submit that anywhere else, right? Because I've got a publishing deal with them.
Right. Now, let me stop you there before you go on. Sorry to interrupt, but it could be that that publishing company has a non-exclusive deal, which means that you could sign with another non-exclusive library. So that's a possibility, but it does prevent you from signing any exclusive deals because the second company, if they're exclusive, would want to fully control and fully monetize. So if you've already signed with another one, they wouldn't. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
Okay, so just to follow up on what you just said there, I mean, obviously I got to go back to my rep over there at the company and ask them that question, right? Did I sign a non-exclusive deal? Would that be the way I'd follow up with them to find out? Because right now that they
or just look at your contract. It'll say, you know, in the first 100 words of the contract, they'll say exclusive or non-exclusive.
Okay. And then with CD Baby monetizing, same thing. If the songs that I've released for Apple iTunes and Spotify, which are not music that's I'm looking to sync at all, it's just, you know, my own original compositions. Again, that stuff I can't submit because if I signed with CD Baby for monetizing it, I could not submit that to any listing. Not that I want to. I'm just asking.
You can submit it for some listings, not listings where it's a publishing company or production music library looking for it. But again, I hate to keep using Ariana Grande, but I keep seeing Ariana's face on here and she makes me think of Ariana Grande. They have the same name. What are the odds? If Ariana Grande is looking for a song and you've signed with CD Baby to monetize your stuff, you can still pitch it to her. CD Baby is going to get a cut of that because they are your publisher or your publishing administrator. So you're doing their work for them by pitching it to her. And if it gets cut by her, they're going to be like, wow, thanks, dude. You just got your song on a major artist record and we get half the money. Good going. But you could definitely pitch it.
So are you, the last thing I'm going to ask, I'm sorry, are you better off to start your own publishing company when you're a composer? Are you better off to own your own publishing? Is it better for you to own the rights to all your publishing?
Well,
Can that be done? Can that be done?
yeah, but you can't work the minute you give it to anybody else to represent you. You've assigned those rights to them. So yeah, people ask me this all the time. Should I start my own publishing company? Well, ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC are going to ask you for what's your name as a writer and what's your publishing company name, because they send out writer payments and publisher payments, and they need a place to send each of those checks. But frankly, and I'm not a music attorney and not 100% expert on this, but I'm pretty sure you could do like Michael Lasko is the songwriter when you sign up with ASCAP, let's say, and the publishing company is Michael Lasko Music Publishing. You don't have to go incorporate. You don't have to run a DBA in the newspaper. You don't have to have any sort of corporate structure. Other than you're probably going to want to set up a bank account for Michael Lasko Music Publishing. And at that point, the bank is going to say, we need proof that this is a real entity, and you're going to have to, spend $25 and run doing business as thing in the classifieds of your local newspaper or something. In some cases, though, recently, just yesterday, as a matter of fact, I saw somebody saying, talk about that exact thing. And they said, I didn't. I just said, Michael Lasko is the writer, Michael Lasko Music Publishing. ASCAP sends checks to both to my home address, and I go down to the bank and deposit them, and the teller happily takes them. So, there are many great books on music publishing that could explain that better probably than I just have, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about that.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time.
You are welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, you are. I can for sure say that. Esther, you are next. Feel free to.
Oh, you mean I got that right, Ari?
Yes, you got that right. That is correct. You don't need to
Yeah.
go through all the hoops.
You'd
so.
think after being in the industry for close to 50 years, I would know everything, but I don't 100%.
It changes a lot, so.
Yeah,
it's not-
especially these days.
Sorry, go ahead, Esther.
Sure, thank you. So I really, you talked about how we need to be able to say that we own all the copyright as well as the masters, and I understand that we own the copyright just by having written it. Do we need to file for copyright with the government as well before we submit?
This is a touchy subject. And again, I want to warn everybody, I'm not a music attorney, although I saw one on TV one time. My music attorney would say, absolutely, you do own the copyright. The minute you've written it down on paper or recorded it on your phone or whatever, it's copywritten, but you've got to register the copyright so that you can prove the date, and putting it in an envelope and mailing it to yourself, the poor man's copyright. I had one lawyer tell me, that's better than nothing. Another lawyer used a lot of expletives and said, don't ever tell anybody to do that. Screamed at me for 5 minutes. And it was a really big music attorney that wrote the definitive book on the business side of the music industry. We were in the back of a taxi together. He's yelling at me, and the driver's looking in the mirror like, I think he's going to punch that dude. Anyway, if I were pitching songs to Ariana Grande, my favorite artist today, I would want those copyrights registered, because you're sending it off to a record company. The producer's going to hear it. Other people involved in the project are going to hear it. It's not that hard for somebody to accidentally rip it off. There are very few cases where people actually purposefully rip stuff off in the music industry. There are some accidental cases. You heard a song 3 weeks ago, a little earworm stuck in your brain, and then you sit down to write your own thing and it comes out sounding the same, but you like it feels familiar but don't know where it came from. So in the case of something that could earn you $1 million, if it's a giant worldwide hit, for Ariana Grande, yeah, I would register that copyright. If you're creating instrumental tracks for film and TV, who cares? And I didn't say that. There is no video evidence of me saying that, right, Ari? Right, Michael. Anyway, most of our members are experienced members that create instrumental tracks for film and TV. Any particular instrumental track is not going to be $1 million earning thing. It's going to make you 25 cents here, $1.95 there, $48.56 there. So copywriting it, what does that really save you? And frankly, a lot of times the publisher that signs you, once they've taken over the publisher's share of that, they're going to amend the copyright or refile the copyright because now they are a half owner of it. So I can't advise you to do it or not to do it in the case of instrumental tracks. I will tell you though, like 90% or greater of our members that produce instrumental tracks don't bother registering the copyrights because it's expensive. And if you were to register, even though, doing a, what do they call it, an SR something or other form that lets you do a group of them all at one time, even that's expensive. And like I said, instrumental cues, it's a penny business, but it adds up. Once you get 500 cues out there, 1,000 cues over a period of years and a bunch of different catalogs, that's when you can start earning tens of thousands or maybe even $100,000, $200,000 a year. The norm is to not register those.
All right. Thank you very much.
You are welcome.
Okay, Miss Tremaine Morris, I hope I said your name right. Feel free to unmute. You are next.
Yeah, you said my name right. Thank you. Okay, so my question is, I'm a music manager. I don't write or create music, but I help artists. I help them with organizing themselves and getting themselves established as far as getting started, like promoting themselves as artists. And I got a Taxi account because I wanted to submit music for my artist. But you said something earlier
Right.
about that not being something I can do. So this tool is not really useful for me as a manager. I would have to get my clients to register themselves.
Right. Number one, you could call here tomorrow. We'll be happy to give you a refund. Say that you watched the new member Zoom and Michael authorized the refund, and we're happy to give you your money back. Or what a lot of people do is just to change the membership over. If there's one artist in particular that you think is the strongest one, make the membership in that artist's name care of you. That way you can take care of the business end of the membership for them, submitting their music.
Okay.
But their name is on the account. So you need their name and you, as Michael Jackson care of Tremaine, whatever your last name was.
Right.
He might be a bad example.
So perfect. So I can transfer it over to him, and I can be like a monitor, or because I'm gonna be the one. He's not gonna even do it. I'm gonna be the. So I know what.
My wife is actually here working this week, and she would probably be the one to handle that. If you call the office tomorrow between 9 and 6 p.m., just ask for Deborah. She's been covering one of the desks this week, and then she'll come trotting down to my office and say, "What did you tell that lady during TAXITV or doing the new member Zoom?" And we'll get you squared away.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, let's do one more. I didn't realize I'm actually way over, 10 minutes over.
Okay, we have a lot of good questions. Thank you for that. And Steve, I believe you're next. If you want to.
I see two more hands up. If you guys can make them relatively short, I'll try and make my answer short, which I'm not famous for. You can clearly see that. I'll try and get both of you guys covered before we call it a night. Go ahead, Steve. Unmute. Lower left corner, little microphone.
No, he is unmuted.
Oh.
Maybe he just doesn't have his microphone source set up. In the meantime, While you figure that out, Steve, why don't we go over to Garrett for a second?
All right. Garrett's the gentleman in the blue shirt.
Yes.
Yes.
There
How
you
you
are.
doing?
Good, Garrett. Go ahead. Ask that
Good.
question.
Just a quick question. So for stuff like film and TV, does that usually need to be radio ready and mastered and stuff, or can you usually like submit like demos? Because
Not demos, because you, if you were watching a TV show and you heard a demo, you'd go, oof, that's a demo. So like I said, broadcast quality means different things for different types of songs and different contexts. There are two schools of thought on mastering. Some people, all mastering means is that you've just taken one final pass at the bass, treble, and probably compression, just to make it sound a little more silky or punchy, or they call it giving it glue. It kind of pulls everything together. Mastering is an art form unto itself. I'm a retired audio engineer with thousands of hours behind consoles under my belt. Let me turn that off. That said, I would not take it upon myself to call myself a mastering engineer, because it's a very specific, real mastering engineers take a different path than a regular recording engineer, and they know stuff that I don't know. I know stuff they don't know. Now, mastering today has taken on a bit of a different connotation, because for $29, you can buy mastering software at Waves, or you could buy Omnisphere. Is it Omnisphere? What's the, there's one that's very popular, not Omnisphere. I don't know. In any case, you can buy mastering software anywhere between like $30 and $300. And a lot of it is pretty darn good, but you have to have the ears to know how to use it. The technology is there, but it's kind of like handing somebody an AR-15. If you're experienced in shooting guns and know a lot about gun safety and how they work, you're fine. If you've never handled a weapon before and somebody hands you an AR-15, more dangerous in your hands than it is laying on the table. So I feel the same way about mastering software. People that buy the software and don't really understand the physics of mastering and, the sounds of what you're trying to achieve in mastering can really screw something up by trying to master what they shouldn't. So frankly, you're better off not mastering it, especially if it's like, and I say this affectionately, if it's a stupid little instrumental cue. It could just be an acoustic guitar finger picked, and then a dobro bottleneck slide on a dobro and a harmonica, 3 instruments. Really good for Duck Dynasty if that were still on the air. Does that need to be mastered? No. Do the levels not be, should they not be slamming into the red? Does it have to have, a reasonably good balance of bottom, middle, and top? Yeah. So if you're, a decent mix engineer, you should be able to accomplish all that. If you're doing an Ariana Grande type thing for film and TV, yes, get that top 40 pop track mastered, because other stuff that it's going to be compared to will have been mastered. For the Duck Dynasty cue, a lot of it won't have been mastered, and frankly, nobody gives a damn.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
And with that, I would like to call it a night, but I am so grateful to you guys for showing up for this. It really does make a difference. You've learned so much now that you might have or might not have learned during your first year at Taxi. And frankly, a lot of people bail out because they get frustrated in their first year. And it's the people, the 50% of members who don't bail out in the first year that end up having a little success or some success in year number 2. Year number 3, it's like, wow, look at that. I made $7,400. Year number 4 or 5, they made $18,000. So it keeps building. But if you're waiting for a miracle to drop down out of heaven and land in your lap and say, I'm blessing you with, $20,000 worth of extra income this year. If I lifted up my shirt and showed you that muscle, you'd know I didn't go to the gym very often. All right. So don't be me. And with that, I bid you a fond farewell. Again, thank you so much for showing up for this. And just know that moving forward, we're going to start doing monthly new member Q&As, where we'll just do like a 90-minute Zoom once a month where it's all Q&A and not me talking unless I'm answering somebody's specific question. So thanks, guys and gals, if I can say gals. Good night. Have a great rest of your week.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us.